for everybody to log on. All right. Okay. All right. So we're going to start, and we're going to be talking about slope intercept form. Once we get everybody on, we'll start talking about coordinate plane and the different quadrants first, if we need to. Then we'll talk about exactly what slope is. We'll do some practice problems with that. Um, and yeah, and as we're getting more and more people logging on, I'm getting reports from CSN letting me know that we're not spending enough time on Aztec. Aztec is definitely a good program to use, and we need to use it. So if it's easier, because when I said, hey, let's do it on your own time, I only had one student do it. I will start class a little bit later so that everybody can do it in the morning, but we need to do it. If not, Michael, Fink, or somebody else from the office are probably going to call on you guys saying, hey, what's going on with your hours? So please make sure that you're logging on to Aztec, and I've had some of you guys send me problems on Aztec, math problems, um, and that's a good way to also bone up on those skills too. So send me an email, hey, I'm doing this, I don't understand it, and I can help you out. So that way you're getting more bang for your buck with your time, because we're getting to that point now where we're going to start pushing the test more and more and more, and Aztec is going to be a good way to prepare yourself. I know that yesterday we had a lot of technical difficulties with the internet. I That's some of the reasons why I like using the conference call. I pay for the highest level internet, but pretty much everybody's home now, so it's constantly being used. So that's why I like using the conference call. What we're gonna do today, I'm also gonna want everybody to call in because there's going to be a lot of questions. Again, this is the the domain. No, this is a standard. This is a math standard that is not really going to apply to what most of us do in real life. So a lot of it is going to be like, hey, this is what a coordinate plane is, and this is what slope is, and you just kind of have to accept it for what it is. I will try to interject some real world applications so that it's not completely a foreign random subject, but some of it is just going to come off that way. So we'll wait for everybody to log on. And while we're doing that, please also make sure that you're filling out the attendance so that we can get that situated. All right. So we're still waiting about 3 more people. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get the conference call started. I want to take this as far as we can possibly go, meaning that if we can get through the point where we are not only defining what the slope is, but we're putting in the slope intercept form and everything else. If we can do that today in the hour and a half that we have together, or I'm going to go a little bit later, then I'm going to push for it because we're coming down to the wire. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm calling in to the conference call line, and I would like everybody else to join because I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of questions.
Your PIN number. Thank you. Joining the conference now.
All right, looks like a few people just joined. Who just joined?
Good morning, it's Hildy.
All right. Okay, so we need Sam to join, Alma, Diane, Maria. Okay. All right. So again, if you need the conference call number, I will send that into the conference. But I'm basing what we're going over on what we know. So I don't want to spend too much time on things that we already know. I really want to focus on what we're lost in. Who just joined? It was like, is Diane here as well? Diane on the conference call? All right, if not, then Diane needs to join. I know Alma joined. Is Mariana on the call? Okay. Who else has joined?
Maria.
All right. Is Mariana on the conference call? All right, so Mariana, please join the conference call. And Sam, please join the conference call as well.
Yes, I did.
All right, perfect. Okay. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm going to create a coordinate plane. And we talked about this last week, but I want to make sure we're comfortable with this. A lot of questions on the test for math are going to come from coordinate plane. So not only will you get questions related to algebra and functions, you're also going to get questions related to geometry. So it's a worthwhile thing to know and understand. Okay. And we have an hour and a half for the math section, right? And I think last time we said there was about 40 or 50 questions. So we want to make sure that we're chugging along. So some questions just are going to require more time than others. All right, who just joined?
Mariana, good morning.
All right, good morning. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is I want to see how well we understand coordinate plane. Okay, so I'm gonna give you an ordered pair. Actually, let's start there. What is an ordered pair? So you can send me a message in the live chat. You could speak up in the conference call. What is an ordered pair? Notice that I'm always using the academic terms.
X and Y.
There we go. X and Y. Okay, good. So.
Both is X, this is Y.
All right. Okay, I like that. Sam came here to take care of business. Okay. So you're not going to need to exactly know all of the quadrants in the sense that you're not going to get a lot of questions about it, but it is important that we know which quadrant houses which ordered pairs. Okay. So this is going to be quadrant 1. I'm maybe going to use Roman numerals. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. You're not going to get a lot of questions about where the ordered pair goes, but you have to know the relationship that these quadrants have, right? So if I have the ordered pair of 4 and -3, which quadrant would that be in? Like I said, feel free to shoot me a message in the live stream, answer on the conference call. Which quadrant would the ordered
Upper
pair?
left, number 2.
Anybody disagree? Sylvia. What's that? Go ahead.
1 and 3.
So ordered pairs can only be in one quadrant. And this is to see how well we understand ordered pairs. So, so I know that Sam seems to have a question. I know there's a couple other people on the call. So,
Okay, so now the order pair is in quadrant, the 4, the number 4.
ooh, okay,
Because 4, -3.
okay. Anybody else? Because we have a lot of other people. Remember, I don't want this to be a podcast unless it's like a situation where you can't participate. But if you're on the conference call, you can participate. So please let me know what quadrant you think it's in. If you don't know, then tell me you don't know. But silence is unacceptable.
Which one is the x-axis and the y-axis, vertical and horizontal?
The x-axis goes horizontally. The y-axis is vertical, up and down. If you ever get confused, look at the little tail, la colita of the Y. The tail lets you know it's going up and down. Let me put
Okay,
that in.
so it's quadrant 4, yes.
All right, I'm still not hearing from Mariana, Maria, Alma, Diane, Andre. This is going to be on the test. This is pretty much the majority of the test, one way or the other.
Yes, I agree.
Go ahead. Whoever wants to go first.
I'm sorry, I agree with quadrants 1 and 4.
Well, it can only be one. So an ordered pair can only be in one of these. It can't be in two. So which one is it in? Ooh, thank you, Mariana, for using the live chat. Yeah. So, and if you don't know, that's fine. I purposely did not put the numbers down to see how well we understand it. So if you're like, hey, I don't know, that's acceptable. But then that lets me know that we're going to spend more time talking about this, and then we're going to move on to slope intercept form.
Okay, it's quadrant 4.
Okay. Okay.
And about that, it's 1 in quadrant 1, we have both positive numbers.
Yes.
And quadrant 3, we have both negative numbers.
Yes.
And 2 and 4, this is not the same positive or negative numbers.
Yes.
Right?
So here we would have, so in quadrant 2, we're going to have negative and positive. And then in quadrant 4, we're going to have positive and negative.
But in quadrant 4, gonna be negative y, negative for the y axis and positive for the x axis.
Correct.
And quadrant 2 is negative for the x axis and positive for the y axis.
Correct. So you will need to know that, especially for geometry. They're going to give you shapes, and they're going to ask you to to look at like dilations and all kinds of movements. We'll get into that a little bit later, but this is going to be huge for the test. You will get some simple questions like, can you plot this on the coordinate plane, 4 and -3? That's not going to be the majority of the questions, but you will get a few that are like that. Okay. So I still haven't heard from Alma, and I never heard from Diane. Are we comfortable with this? Okay, no, sorry. I did hear from Diane. My apologies. Okay, still haven't heard from Alma. Okay, so it seems like everybody's comfortable. So we're going to move on. All right. So we're going to be talking now about slope intercept form. This is how we graph a line. So I'm going to leave this up here. and I'm just going to add in slope-intercept form. Okay. So slope-intercept form. Actually, you know what? We talked about this last week. What is the formula for slope-intercept form? You can send it to me in the live chat. Tell me through the conference call. I just want to make sure everybody's here paying attention. The formula for slope-intercept form.
Y equal
Uh-huh.
X plus B.
Y equals mx plus b. Okay, good. And where do I find, and it'll be a little bit of a trick question. Good, good. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Mariana. Okay. So where do I find the slope?
Slope is M.
Okay, so this would be the slope. And
Where
normally,
the number that
oh, okay, go ahead, Sam. I'm gonna turn you up. Go ahead. Say from the beginning so everybody can hear you.
I said it's the M. If the number is whatever number that David X.
Okay, good. Now, where do we find the y-axis? That's actually the real tricky question. We know this is the slope. This is going to be rise over run. This is going to tell us how much we're going to go up and how much we're going to go across. Slope is always going to be a fraction. So how do we know where the y-axis is?
When y-axis is B when x equals 0.
Okay, so this right here is actually the y-axis. So the B, this is where we're going to go on the y-axis, and we're going to plot whatever that number is, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. That's where we're going to plot it, and then that's where we move from. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Makes sense? Makes sense? Those of us at home? Okay. All right. So there's a couple of things we're going to do with this. So the first thing, now that we have this, I'm going to show you how we would graph a very simple formula for slope-intercept form. Then we're going to talk about how to put things in intercept form. And then we're going to talk about some of these tables that you're going to see, which are going to come back to algebraic equations. Okay. So I'm going to make this a little smaller so we have space. Okay. So we know what slope-intercept form is, and we know we have to graph it. So a very simple slope-intercept form could be 3/4 x plus 2. So I would go on the coordinate plane. And I would find positive 2. I would put my point there. This is where we're going to start. Then I would rise 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to run 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put another point there. Then I'm going to create a line. We're going to talk about shading above the origin and everything else later on. But this is how we graph our slope-intercept form. Questions so far on that?
So the plus 2 is on the y-axis?
Correct.
Okay, and then what happens? We rise 3 from there? Or
Yes.
3?
Because remember, this is rise over run. Now, if it's negative, it becomes fall over run. always either rise or fall to the right. Make sense so far?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So we go to the y-axis. We know that it's going to be 2. Then we go rise over run. The other thing that I would like everybody to know is that this point here, 0, 0, the ordered pair, 0, 0, we call that the origin. This is called the origin. This is not going to become incredibly important until we talk about shading, but anytime that you hear the word origin and you're thinking about a coordinate plane or you're talking about a coordinate plane, it's important to understand that it's there.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
How do you find the second point?
Ooh, okay. So there's going to be a couple of ways to do that. So I'm going to give you one, and then we're going to do some other problems that will ask you to use a different operation. So the first way that you can do it is by looking at where we're looking at where the line goes, right? So the line, when you do this on a real problem, this is going to be a real coordinate plane that will have lines that go all the way through. So when you're plotting this line, whatever ordered pair the line hits, that's the other number on the line. So you will get a couple of questions like that. So that's the first way you can find it. The other way that you can find it is when they give you a table. And here's what I mean by that. So you're going to get a table that looks like this. If and then. That's a great question. All right. So it might say something like, if X is 1, then what is Y? And then this will give you all of the other ordered pairs on that line. You'll probably get a lot of questions like this. You'll get a few that will ask you to create the slope and then say, hey, is this point going to be on that line? You'll get a few like that. But the vast majority are going to be from the table.
Okay.
Does the arrow depend on how the answer goes? Yes. Because if it goes this way, you have a positive slope. See how it's going upward? You have a positive slope. If it's going from left to right down, you have a negative slope. That's why I say if this happens to be a negative number, you're going to do fall over run, and you're always going to fall to the right. So yes, the direction that the arrow goes, the fact that the arrow is solid, all of that is intentional. So it's just like reading when we talk about how in fiction stories, everything that happens for a reason because it's supposed to be part of a lesson or whatever. Everything in math is the same way. Not all of these lines are going to be solid, but for now, what we're talking about is solid, but that will change. So yes, the direction, the fact that it's solid, all of that means something. And it does depend on the problem. The slope is going to determine whether it's positive or negative, right? The y-axis just tells us where it intercepts the y. Question so far?
No.
Okay. So let's go ahead and look at. I'm sorry. Somebody had a question?
No question. No.
Okay. So think of it as this line represents all of the possible solutions to this problem. So any answer I would get should be on this line. Again, you're not going to get too many questions where they're going to ask you about a point on the line. Not going to get too many of those. You will get a lot of these. Okay. So let's look at how we would solve a problem that has the X and Y column. So what we have to do is plot one in and then solve it for the other. So let's go with, I'm going to write up a sample problem, and I'm going to want you guys to try to solve it yourselves first. Then we're going to do it together. So 1.5 x plus 3. And they're letting you know that x is going to equal -2. So if x equals -2, tell me what y must equal.
+3.
Okay, so we got one
Oh,
person has
positive.
+3. Okay.
+2.
All right. So I've heard from 2 people so far.
Yeah, I
Mm,
got +2.
okay. Let's see. Haven't heard from a few people yet. Andre, Diane, sorry. So, Andre, any ideas? Alma, Diane,
Yeah.
Maria, what do you guys think?
In this case, I think this should be a positive number.
A positive number? Okay. So, -1. Okay, so we got a couple different answers. Okay. So, it could be, you know what? Diane, can you walk us through how you got -1? Okay. You're not on the conference call. So, Ildi, can you walk us through how you said you got +3, I think you said?
I did say +3, but only because the last number is +3, and that's the plot number that we need to mark.
Okay, so do you
I
still,
didn't do any kind of.
okay, so do you still believe it's +3?
Am I still sticking with +3?
Yeah, you're still thinking it's
For
+3?
now. For now.
For now? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this. Okay, so Sam, can you walk us through how you got +2? I'm going to go ahead and erase this so we have some space.
Okay. So we find the y equals 1/2 x plus 3, and then it told us x equals -2. So multiply by -2.
So y
equals.
oh, you are smoking it. Okay, so I'm going to plug that in. -2. Okay,
Yeah,
so what do we do from here?
And
Sorry.
then plus 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
This
And
is
so 1/2
Uh-huh.
multiplied by negative equal -1.
Okay, so
y
negative 2 times a half is -1. Okay.
Mhm. Plus 3. So the answer y equals +2. Because -1 plus 3 equals +2. That's it. It's the answer.
Subtract 2 and 3. Okay. All right, this is the answer. Any questions about that so far?
Question.
Yes, go ahead. Nobody has a question?
Hello?
Okay.
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead. What is your question?
How do you get -1?
Okay, so que it's negative 2 times a half. Entonces es como es el número 2 negativo y estamos tomando mitad de ese número. Entonces, ¿qué es mitad de 2 negativo?
1,
Sí. Pero ¿uno qué?
negativo.
¿Sí me explico? All right. Anybody else? Questions? All right. So I'm going to give you no questions. Okay. Give you a few more values for x so that you can solve. Again, these problems should take you about a minute. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. I'm going to start the timer so that we can get in that habit because we know we have an hour and a half. We know we have about 40 questions or something like that. So it really is coming down about 1 or 2 minutes per question. So I'll let you guys go ahead, solve this. As soon as you're done, let me know and I can take your time. All right, time starts right now.
I'm done.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Love that. 3 seconds.
I'm done. Think.
Okay. That's 13 seconds.
With the 0. Right.
So yeah, so let me know when you're done with all of it. Okay. 36 seconds.
Okay, I'm done.
44 seconds. 47 seconds. All right. Anybody else still working?
I'm done.
1 minute and 21 seconds. All right. Anybody else still working? All right. So there is nobody else working. Looks like everyone had finished within 2 minutes. Okay. So let's go ahead and plug this in.
Okay. X equals 0.
Oh, I love that. Sam is ready to go. Okay. So let's walk through this in case. Can you walk us through it in case people have questions?
multiply with 0.
Okay. So this would be 0.
Yes. Plus 3. So y equals 3.
Okay, so half of 0 is 0
Yes.
plus 3. Y equals 3.
Eight.
Questions about that?
No. No.
No question.
No.
Okay. Who would like to show us what the y will be when x equals 2? Remember, we're all going to do this on our own one day. So if you,
Okay, so x is 2, so 1.5 times 2 is 1. Plus 3 is 4, so y equals 4.
does anybody disagree? Oh. Sorry. Questions about that?
4.
Oh, is it 4?
Somebody write down 3.
Sorry. Good. I want to see who's paying attention.
It's 4.
Yeah. Any questions about that?
No. No question.
Okay.
No question.
Yeah, so this one is fairly simple, right? You will see a lot of. You're gonna get a lot of having to plug these in and finding out what the y would be. Okay.
Do we get a calculator to do these? Because it's definitely much quicker to use a calculator.
You know what? I know some of the tests. I know some versions of it let you use it. I want to say actually, I might send out the same graphic I sent out last time that tells you whether you can use a calculator. So I believe with the GED you can, and look at the test. See, I don't think with the high set you can, but I'm gonna find that real quick.
I can use calculator too.
Oh, okay, yeah, that I wasn't sure of. So you can. Let's see here. My 2 cents is that if you use a calculator, the numbers can be more difficult because there should be no error in the computation, right? So the idea is if you know the way things are supposed to be done, you shouldn't have any problem then getting the answer. So the numbers can be more rigorous. My personal 2 cents is if you end up not using a calculator, there's limits to how much you can do with paper. So the numbers are going to be a little easier to work with. Me personally, and in working with you guys, I would say the vast majority of you guys would benefit from not using a calculator, but that's something that you would know as a learner. Okay, somebody has a question. Okay, so where are we lost? Okay, yeah. If you have accommodations for any tests, if it's part of like an IEP, an individual education plan, and you have a like registered diagnosed learning disability, you can use it. More power to you. So all of that is something I would really talk with Michael Fink about. Um, the only thing I would caution with those IEPs or those are kind of accommodations, if you have like a 504, these are all like education terms. for people that need additional services is to make sure that your advisor, in this case, it would be Michael, advocates for you on that because these testing centers have to be prepared. The proctors have to be trained. There's a lot that goes into it. So if you have that accommodation, you would want a copy of the IAP. You want Michael to speak on your behalf. Yeah. So Michael would be the best point of contact for that. If anyone has ever gone to testing before, you normally get wanded. They pat you down and they sit you far apart from everybody else. It's a sanitized testing environment. So make sure that you carry that paperwork. Your advisor advocates for you so you can have it. Okay. I was using my brain. You guys are all using your brain. Any questions still on this?
No question.
No question.
Okay. So I'm going to replicate a word problem here, and then I'm going to want you guys to solve it. Then we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about a couple of different things. How to get how to get equations into slope intercept form because they're not gonna be like this most likely. The y is going to be here, the half is going to be there, and I'm going to teach you a couple of tricks to be able to figure out how to maneuver that. Okay. All right. So this is going to take me a little bit because yes, go ahead.
One question, please.
Yeah.
This is really clear for me, but I've had some difficulty on quiz about this transcript this slope formula
Uh-huh.
from the problem. You understand it? This is on quiz we had one problem, and we have to transcript to formula, and there is no clear for me about this X or I on the problem. I hope you understand it.
You mean like you had a question in Aztec or a quiz that didn't ask you about slope intercept form?
Yeah, the one quiz, something we have a graphical, and we need to got a formula, and this is hard for me.
Oh, okay. Did they give it to you in slope intercept form, or did they give it to you something like this?
No, this is okay for me. This is in algebra was okay for me, but and transcript to graphical or from formula to graphical or graphical from graphical to formula. But
You know what? Because I think I
exactly
uh-huh.
question and quiz. But it's okay. It's okay.
No, I want to help you. Can you take a screenshot of it and send it to me? Can you take a screenshot of the question and then like email it to me? Because I want to help.
Yes, I tried to get a push from the quiz,
Yes.
but I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it's okay. Even if you send me a problem that is kind of like what you're not understanding, I can help you. Because with slope intercept form, this is one of the ways that they trick you. And then they can also give you no slope, and that can also be tricky. Yeah. So yeah, anytime you guys have a question, please ask it. Send me a screenshot if it's hard to explain, and I'd love to look at it. So I got a message from someone in class a couple hours ago, and I was able to help them out. So if it's something that's hard to explain, and you say, "Hey, I don't understand what they're asking me to do," send me a screenshot. Even if you take a picture of your phone and text it to me. So okay. Now, I'm not putting the numbers because all the practice problems that I see, they don't put the numbers either. So I'm trying to get everybody in that habit. So some of them do, some of them don't. I think it's harder when there are no numbers. I know that you're looking at this through YouTube. So if it's easier for you to see with me adding in the numbers, I will do so. So the question is, line P is the graph of which equation? A.
Yes, something like this.
Okay, perfect. So then now we'll be able to work it out together. And I know I'm trying to fit everything in. So if you can't see, send me a message, holler at me, say, hey, Mr. Mota, I can't see everything. Sorry.
Okay. Here we have 2 positive 2. Okay. P is equal to 5. Okay. Then S and T is like an X. Okay. Oh, my brain is going to go on. Okay. Understand.
Might be for me, may answer is C.
Okay. So let's see. All right. So I'm going to start marking some of these. Okay. So somebody said C.
Yeah, but I don't know right or wrong.
So graph this. I know it might be a little hard. I'll even give you the ordered pair. So for P, the ordered pair is going to be -1 and 2.
Yes.
For T, the ordered pair is going to be 4, +4, +1. And for S, it's going to be -4,
Negative
-1.
and negative 1.
So which one of these is showing the graph of P? So if you were to graph these, which one is going to run into P?
It's confusing.
Okay, so still haven't heard from Diane, Alma, Mariana, Maria, Ildi. So if you're confused, just let me know. Hey, I
Why,
do not know what it's asking.
why does the C have a negative in front of it? Why?
What's
I
that?
would have picked C.
See?
I would have picked C for this.
Okay, so first thing we want to do, graph each one of these. Graph each one. You can do it on your own paper. See which one is going to hit the letter P. And you know the letter P is at -1 and 2. This is also going to be harder than the test because the test would actually give you graph paper. I can take a screenshot and put it in ClassKick, but I kind of wanted to use the board so we could move through more and more standards than having to jump back and forth between ClassKick. So if you're up for the challenge, graph it yourself.
Okay, I'm picking E. Negative 4x, negative 2.
So you said you picked E?
Yes, negative 4x, negative 2.
Okay.
Yes.
No, that's not right. Hold on.
Oh, hey. We're all family.
I still choose. I still choose C.
Okay, so Sam is still sticking with C.
Is negative 1.
So you think it's A, Andre?
I choose C.
Okay. So we got C, we got E,
Negative 4.
and we got somebody else saying C.
Okay, yeah, I'm sticking with E.
Okay, so Alma, Mariana, Maria, Diane, where you guys at? Okay, so I've heard from Mariana.
I'm confused with that.
¿Estás confundida?
I wrote the equation, but I am thinking about the two that I wrote.
Okay. All right. So I understand that drawing your own graph can be difficult. Would you like me to post this up in ClassKick, and that way you have a real graph? Okay, so Maria says she has a question. She's lost. Would you guys like me to post this in ClassKick so you have a real graph, or do you think that the graph that you guys are creating on your own is fine?
Either way.
Okay, so this is either way. Somebody else is saying E. So figuring it out. Okay, so no one says that they want it on actual graph paper. You could, again, if you create your own graph, it should be exactly the same thing. And I still see people asking for some more time. So I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes. If you want to use a live chat, if you want to chat on the conference call, that's fine.
Anything that has a negative? I don't know. I'm totally confused right now.
You're okay. You're getting close. If a line passes through point P, is it going to be a positive slope or is it going to be a negative slope?
A positive.
Remember, so we always go to the right, right? So for a point to pass through P, it has to go from here to here. Is that positive or is that negative? We always look at it from left to right. Would it be positive or would it be negative?
Would be negative.
So what can we get rid of right off the bat?
So the positives need to be get rid of.
There you go.
So A and C needs to get rid of.
And somebody had asked a question about, are we solving for X or Y? Here, we're not solving for X or Y. We are going to graph all of these and see which line hits point P. So we're not solving for X or Y. All we're doing is seeing which one of these equations is going to hit point P. So Ildi brought up the fact that time is of the essence, and we kind of don't know where to start. We'd have to graph all of these. There's a couple of things we know. If we're going to hit point P, it cannot be a positive slope because from left to right, it's going down. So whatever has a positive slope, we can get rid of, right? So we can get rid of A, we can get rid of C, we can also get rid of D. We know the slope has to be negative because of the way that it hits the P.
It's because it's on the left side of the graph, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
So these are those things that will make you efficient and quick when we're working, right? So this looks intimidating. It's like, oh man, there's 5 possible answer choices. But with just a little bit of numeracy going, I know this has to be a negative slope. I already got rid of 3. This is how we stay efficient. So between B and E now. Okay. So We're going to go through this. And again, I'm always asking for people to participate and seeing who's paying attention because I know that it's easy to kind of like drift off, or two or three people are comfortable talking and everybody else kind of falls back. But just remember, this is your test. And with everything going on right now, it's important that you pass, not just for the program, but for yourself. So don't live through the people who speak all the time. Ask your questions so that you can understand, right? It's better to go through any kind of embarrassment that you might feel by saying I'm completely lost, get it now and pass, than to be quiet, not understand it, take the test and fail, and have to go through all of those consequences. So the first method we did that we used was looking at the fact that the slope would have to be negative. We got rid of A, C, and D. So we know that it either has to be B or that it has to be E. Okay. So let's look at B. Let's say if we went to -1, and I want somebody to walk me through how I'm going to graph that. I need somebody to walk me through graphing it.
So why we
Hold on a
have
second. And it can't be Sam, it can't be Ildi, and it can't be Andre because I hear you guys are confident. You're always speaking up. So I want to hear from the people that are scared. Diane, Mariana, Alma. I don't know you guys are still with us.
That's okay. I'm following your explanation.
so now why you start with the -1
Because that's where it crosses the Y.
on the y-axis?
Mm-hmm. On the Y-axis, we're going to start at -1. So, Alma, Diane, Mariana, Maria, walk us through this again, because you will have to do this on your own. And you're all 4 and 5s on the tape test, so I know you can do this. If you're confused, let me know you're confused.
Thinking so simple. We need to figure out the number -1 because 2 you already know. Understand? This is right thinking. So
Say it again.
this, we need to figure out the equation, right? That solve it and -1 because P is pointed and -1 and 2. 2 is properly P and all these equations are just letter E solve it on -1.
Yeah, so here we don't necessarily need to solve it, but what we do need to do is graph it. So we start off with the y-axis, right? And the next step then is to graph it so we can see if the line is going to hit point P. And that's why I wanted somebody to walk us through it who we don't normally hear from. Because I definitely hear from Ildi, I hear from Sam, I hear from you. But I'm just wondering if Diane is still with us. I'm wondering if Maria is still with us. I'm wondering if Alma's still with us.
So I
Go ahead. Who was that?
Sam.
Okay.
So if x-axis like the pair is on the x-axis, they give us negative. So the slope formula is always fall over run.
Yes, it's gonna be fall over run. Okay. So looks like Alma, Diane, Maria, Mariana, they're not with us right now. Okay. So let's move on then. So you're exactly right. It's gonna be fall over run. So we know if we plot answer B, we're at -1. How many times are we gonna fall? Anybody can answer this.
I'm sorry, I'm here, but I can't understand what we are doing.
Okay. Lo que estamos haciendo ahora, por las respuestas que nos dieron, que tenemos disponible,
Uh-huh.
vemos que cuando este punto aquí tiene un grado negativo, a negative incline. ¿Sí me explico? Entonces sabemos que el slope no puede ser positivo. Entonces,
Son negativos. Ajá.
sí, entonces, entonces quitamos y eliminamos A, C y D. Sabemos ahora que la respuesta va a ser o B o E. Entonces ahora lo que estamos haciendo es poniendo la línea aquí en esta imagen para ver qué línea va a tocar el punto P de papá. Comenzamos aquí en el punto 1 negativo. Y ahora sabemos que tenemos que bajar 4 y correr 1. ¿Sí me explico?
Okay. Sí, sí, sí.
Okay. So how am I going to fall and run? Walk me through falling and running. And this could be anybody.
The ball comes down from -1 to -2, -3,
Yep, so be
or -5.
yeah, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then what am I going to do?
-5.
Then I'm going to move over 1, right? 1. I have 2
Uh,
points now, so I can graph it. Is it going to hit point P?
So, no.
No. So we know it's not going to be B, it's going to be E. So that's something else that's going to make you faster. We eliminated the answers that were wrong because that little slight discrepancy, not having a negative slope. Then we know if it's between B and E, when we graph one of them, we're going to find the answer. Whether we know the answer because what we graphed is wrong or will we know the answer because what we graphed is right. So we know this is not going to hit P, right? But just for the sake of learning, let's use the second example. Okay, so let's look at negative. So we know it's not going to be B. Let's look at E then. -2. It's 1, 2. So we're going to start off at -2. And it says here that we're going to fall 4 and run 1, just like we did before. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to run another one. And make sure I got all of this correct. And I know mine's going to be a little off. So this is actually going to be a little higher because I realized. So we're really going to be right about here. So it's actually close to the origin. We're going to fall 4. 1. So we're going to go over here. We're going to fall 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to run 1. Right? So if we continue that, then we would see that we would eventually hit it, even when we start graphing, right? So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. And what do we run? 1. So I know my graph isn't perfect, but when you start plotting the points, we're going to plot point P, right? So I would fall 1, 2, 3, 4. I run 1. I'm here. I'm going to go up 4. 1. There should be another one here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to run 1. So I'm still going from left to right, but my line would intercept here. I know the graph isn't exactly on point and my tick marks are off, but do you see how even when we went here, we're still going to end up at point P? Where if we started off 1 higher, we would be off. Does that make sense? And if it doesn't, let me know because I can use an actual graph That might be easier to follow.
I still think about negative sign
Negative
and
what?
positive sign. I still think about negative sign and positive sign. On the equation E, so negative 4x minus 2. So negative 4x and equation, the other equation is positive 4x. If negative and positive affect to the fall or rise or something like that.
Yes. So when you're looking at negative 4x minus 2, you know you're going to fall 4 and you're going to run 1. But you're starting at
So
point negative 2.
yeah, so it's negative 4x, so it means fall. So how about positive 4x? For rise or fall?
When it's positive, you rise. When it's negative, you fall.
So it's in equation C, y equals 4x plus 2.
Mhm.
I use y from the 2 and then write 4.
So when it says y equals 4x plus 2, you go to positive 2, and then you're going to
Yeah,
rise 4
and then
and run 1.
and run 1. And then this one, I got the answer. That's why I answer equation C.
Well, it can't be equation C because C has a positive slope. To hit point P, you need a negative slope.
Okay.
There's another one, another tool you can use. So this is useful when you have an actual graph. If you have an actual graph, then you can plot it out and look at where the line's going to hit. So mine was obviously hand drawn, so it's not as accurate. But what I could do is say, okay, I know my point. If I go to negative 2, I fall 4, bunch of space. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I run 1. I know I'm going to be about here. I know my graph isn't super accurate, so I'm also going to rise 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to run 1. Doing the same thing in reverse. And I know that both points would hit. So you can use a graph. I'm going to give you one more tool if you ever encounter a question like this. And it's using the slope formula. So we know if you know what 2 points are, you can use the slope formula to figure out what the slope is. Right? So here, the x is what? What is the x in this equation? I'm sorry, in this point. What is the value of x?
The x is negative 1.
Well, if it's on negative 2, do we have anything representing x? We don't. So it's 0.
Oh, yeah.
What is the y?
Y is negative 2. Okay.
Okay. So we know that y is going to be negative 2.
Yeah.
Right? So if we plug this into the slope formula, we're going to get that. We're going to get at least what the slope is. That's another way to eliminate these. Right? And the slope formula is y2 minus y1, and then x2 minus x1. Doesn't really matter which one you make the x. Doesn't really matter which. Doesn't matter which one you make the x2, which one you make the x1, or the y2, or the y1. That's another tool. Actually, we're going to talk about this more here in a moment. But are there any questions regarding how we got E?
I'm still confused about why you
without, how do you without down to each?
Okay. So I'm going to make a more accurate graph to show you. So I'm going to try my best to replicate a graph here. It's important that your graph is accurate because when you're plotting the line, if your graph isn't accurate, you're not going to see what it intercepts. Okay. So this is my best attempt. I'm not an artist. I'm gonna make the X and Y red so that it's even easier to see. So this is similar to what you would see in a graph, right? Do we see how every line goes on till infinity? I made the ones we're going to use bold. So the original point was at -1 and +2. So it was at -1, which is right here, and +2. So we were here. E says that if we start at -2, which would be here, and we would go down 4 and run 1, we're going to hit this point. So if I go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I run 1,
Yeah.
then I'm going to hit this point. Now, again, this is about as accurate as I can be. But do you see here how we're already pretty much forming that line? So I can keep going with this down forever, right? So that'd be another 1, 2, 3, 4, run 1. So I'm going to be right about here. I also can do the same thing going up, right? I already have points down here, but I need to see how it goes over there without just drawing a line. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go up 4. I already went down 2, so I did what we always do, but I want to see where it is over here. So let's see. I'm going to go up 4, right? Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many times am I going to run?
1.
So your line ends up looking like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anybody else? Questions?
No question.
No questions.
No question.
All right. So we're going to move on. Okay. Slope intercept. The slope formula. We already introduced it. Okay. So I'm going to talk very quickly about another way they try to trick you, and then we're going to finish up with the slope formula. So another way that they try to trick you is by not putting the numbers in slope intercept form. Okay. So you may get something like this. Okay. So I'm going to give you a simple rule. Okay. Anytime it's not in the right order, right? Like here we have 3/4 x plus 2 equals y. We need to switch everything around so that it goes back to the form of y equals mx plus b. I'm going to give you a little math trick. Okay. And there's a lot of like logical reasoning and numeracy behind this, but we don't have time for that. Anytime you move across the equal sign, anytime something goes across the equal sign, it's going to become the opposite. And you should already know that's true because when we want to get rid of things in algebraic equations, we do the opposite, right? It's the same logic. So if I want to arrange this to go into this formula, anytime something crosses the equal sign, it's going to become the opposite. So this is going to become negative y. This is on the wrong side of the equal sign as well. So we're going to move it across. This is going to become negative 3/4x. The 2 is also on the wrong side of the equal sign. It's going to cross over. Because it's positive, it's going to become a negative. Questions so far for where we are right now?
No.
Okay.
No question.
All right. Now, I'm going to rewrite this a little bit bigger. So we have negative y equals negative 3/4x minus 2, right?
Minus.
Are these two the same?
No.
What is
Not
different?
Negative sign y.
Correct. So I can divide. I want to get rid of this negative 1, right? Think about when we're working with algebra and we're doing those opposite equations, the inverse operations. I always want to get rid of something, right? Well, I have a negative 1y here. I can't have that. That's not this. So I have to divide the whole thing by negative 1. Now, that's going to give me
Y.
equals positive 3/4 x plus 2.
2.
I don't think you're going, I think this is going to be one of the ways they're going to try to intimidate you. They're going to put this all out of order. They're going to put a number here with the y. There's all kinds of little ways to kind of like throw you off. All right. But always remember, you need it to be in y equals mx plus b. So when things move across the equal sign, they become the opposite. If you have a number here with the y, you need to get rid of it. And how do you get rid of it? By doing the opposite of whatever that number is, right? So if it's 3/4, then you need to multiply everything by 3/4. If it's -5, then everything needs to be divided by -5. Always do the opposite so you can get it back to slope-intercept form. Questions on that?
No question.
No question. No question.
Okay. So now we're going to talk. So you see this. So what we're going to talk about now is the slope formula. Okay. And we're going to talk about slopes in general for a little bit. This is something that you pretty much need to memorize, which is when a slope is positive and negative, and when there's no solution. So this will give me a quick hit before we get into slope-intercept form. I know we got about 4 minutes left. Are we comfortable moving on and maybe going past a little bit past 12, or we want to do a hard stop at 12?
I have to go at 12.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have to left at 12.
Okay. All right. So we'll at least.
Me
Uh-huh.
too. I need to leave the class at 12 to have to work.
Okay. So then we'll talk about the positive and negative slopes and no solution tomorrow, or the next time we hit math, which is not going to be tomorrow. It'll be Monday. So I'm going to leave you guys with the slope-intercept form, or the slope formula, right? Which is, again, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay. So when we're working on this, the most important thing to remember is that it doesn't matter out of my ordered pairs which one I make the x2 or which one I make the x1. What matters is that I plug them in. So if I have a graph, and let's say they just gave me 2 points. There's a couple ways this question will show up. I have a graph, and they gave me 2 points. And they might ask you what the slope is. Now, obviously, you can count and do rise over run, but they may give you a word problem or just give you the numbers. So let's say that this one here is -2, and this point here is -2 and 4. This point here is going to be +3 and -1. Right? I don't know what the slope is. Maybe it's a word problem. They don't give me the graph. They don't allow you to count, whatever. I'm going to plug this into this equation. Just select whatever is going to be the y2 and select whatever is going to be your x2. Question so far?
No.
Okay.
No question.
No questions? Okay. So we're going to say this is x2. And yeah, it's going to be x2
Why?
and y2, x1, y1. So I want to plug this in. So y2, which is 4, right? Subtracted by y1, which is -1.
-1.
So we have x2, which is -2, subtracted by x1, which is 3. So 4 minus -1, keep, change.
5.
5. -2 minus 3, keep, change. -5. That would be my slope. I'm going to fall 5, run 5. Rise 5, run 5. You're probably going to see this with a lot of word problems, or they're going to give you an equation. They're going to give you a graph like this, and they're going to ask you. Now, we know that we can literally count the spaces and find the slope too. So use that to make you more efficient when you're working. So if you don't need to graph everything, look at those 2 points and find the slope by counting it. You can do that. If they're not giving it to you, use a slope formula. All right, you have multiple tools. Okay. Any questions so far?
No questions.
All right.
No question.
Perfect. So tomorrow we're going to pick up with reading, and we're going to be talking about character traits. Still pretty much inferencing, but it also deals with predicting. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about that. All right. Please make sure you're getting your hours in on Aztec. I hate to see that we don't have any hours or one student has hours. I'm sure Michael doesn't want to call people, ask them to use hours. If you have questions about it, take a picture, send it to me, and we can continue to work on it. All right. So if there are no further questions, I will see everybody tomorrow.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.